It began as a whisper in the static between stars, a message that defied explanation. On every frequency, in every language known to humanity, the signal emerged with perfect clarity. Help us, please. They are coming. We cannot stop them. For 72 hours, the transmission repeated across Earth's communication networks. In secure facilities from Washington to Beijing, scientists and leaders gathered in emergency sessions to discuss the unprecedented alien contact. The signal's origin was pinpointed to a star system nearly 50 light-years away. Yet somehow, the translation arrived perfectly in every human tongue, a feat that defied conventional understanding. "This must be a deception," General Marcus Thorne insisted, his voice echoing in the underground conference room. "No alien civilization could possibly know our languages this perfectly." Dr. Elena Chon, head of xenolinguistics at the International Space Institute, shook her head. "The message contains embedded translation matrices. It's designed to be understood by any civilization capable of receiving it. This is a genuine distress call." Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, the Starship Endeavour maintained its regular patrol route. Captain Jason Wolf watched the blue planet below, unaware that his life and humanity's place in the universe was about to change forever. The Endeavour was Earth's newest military vessel, designed for deep space operations and armed with weapons developed during centuries of human conflict. At 42, Wolf had spent his entire adult life in service to Earth Space Command, rising through the ranks during the colony conflicts of the previous decade. "Captain," his communications officer called out, breaking his reverie. "Priority message from command." Wolf straightened his uniform and moved to the main view screen. The stern face of Admiral Sarah Richardson appeared, her expression grave. "You've heard about the alien signal," she stated rather than asked. "Yes, Admiral. The entire planet has heard it. We decided to respond. The Endeavour will make first contact." Wolf's heart skipped a beat. First contact, the words humanity had dreamed of for centuries. "Why us, Admiral? We're a warship, not a diplomatic vessel." Richardson's expression darkened. "Because the message is a call for help against something that's killing them. If we're walking into danger, I want our best ship out there." 3 days later, the Endeavour prepared to depart Earth's orbit. Governments worldwide had united in their decision to answer the call. This was humanity's chance to join whatever galactic community existed beyond their solar system. Wolf addressed his crew of 400 from the bridge. "We don't know what we're facing. We don't know who sent a message, but we know they need help, and Earth has decided to provide it. This mission may be dangerous. It will certainly change human history forever." The Endeavour engaged its experimental faster-than-light drive, disappearing from Earth's orbit in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. Weeks later, they arrived at the coordinates embedded in the message. A massive space station orbited a blue-green world. The station's design was elegant, with sweeping curves and transparent sections that revealed gardens within. It looked nothing like the utilitarian human ships. "We're being hailed," the communications officer reported. The main screen flickered to life, showing a slender creature with 4 arms and iridescent skin. Its large eyes widened visibly at the sight of humans. You came," the alien said, its voice translated through the same matrix that had decoded their distress call. "I'm Captain Jason Wolf of the Earthship Endeavour. We received your distress call." The alien's body trembled slightly. "I am Ambassador Zyler of the Galactic Coalition. We sent our call to all corners of the galaxy, but never imagined." The alien paused, seeming to gather courage. "Never imagined that Deathworlders would answer." "Deathworlders?" Wolf asked. "Your planet is classified as a death world in our records, too dangerous to approach. Your gravity, atmosphere, pathogens, predators, and even your own species' aggression levels are all lethal by our standards." Wolf exchanged glances with his officers. "Then why ask for our help?" Ambassador Zyler's 4 hands clasped together in what seemed like a gesture of prayer. "Because what comes for us is worse than anything even you have faced. We call it the Void Swarm. It consumes everything in its path, and our weapons cannot stop it." The docking bay of the Coalition station was massive, designed to accommodate ships from hundreds of different worlds. The Endeavour looked out of place among the sleek, colorful vessels, dark, angular, and bristling with weapons. Captain Wolf led a small team onto the station. Ambassador Xyler waited with a group of aliens, each more strange than the last. Some floated in the air, others stood on multiple legs, and one appeared to be made of living crystal. "Welcome to Harmony Station," Xyler said, keeping a noticeable distance from the humans. "Please forgive our caution. Your biology is concerning to us." Wolf nodded. "We understand. We come in peace and to offer help." The crystal being stepped forward, light dancing through its transparent body. "I am Elder CRYST of the Council. Your ship, it is a weapon. It's a battleship." Wolf answered honestly, "Built for defense and combat." A wave of whispers passed through the alien delegation. One small creature with 6 eyes fainted, falling into the arms of its companions. Xyler's voice trembled. "Your entire vessel is designed for war. We had heard rumors that Deathworlders built such things, but to see it—" "You asked for help against something that's killing your people," Wolf said. "What did you expect? Scientists? Diplomats?" Elder CRYST's crystal form pulsed with light. "Not warriors." Wolf looked around the beautiful station. Everything was designed for comfort and beauty. No defenses, no weapons. These people had never known war as humans understood it. "Take us to your command center," Wolf said. "Show us what we're up against." The central chamber of Harmony Station contained a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of green dots represented coalition worlds, while a growing red mass consumed one edge of their territory. The Void Swarm began at the edge of known space, Xyler explained. "It is not intelligent as we understand it. It simply consumes." Wolf studied the map. "How fast does it move?" "It has devoured 17 worlds in one cycle," Elder Sirwasti answered. "Billions dead. It leaves nothing behind." "And your defenses?" asked Lieutenant Amanda Chone, Wolf's tactical officer. The aliens exchanged uncomfortable looks. "We have deterrent technology," Xyler said carefully, "designed to discourage aggressive species. Nothing meant for war." Wolf's expression hardened. "Show me footage of the swarm." The holographic display changed to show a planet surrounded by what looked like a living cloud. Billions of insect-like creatures, each the size of a small car, covered the world's surface. Plants, animals, even buildings dissolved under their touch. "The swarm consumes all organic matter and converts it to more of itself," Xyler explained. "Our weapons barely slow it down." The humans watched in silence. Finally, Wolf turned to the aliens. "We'll help you, but you need to understand something about humans. We come from a world where everything tries to kill us. The weather, the animals, even microscopic things you can't see. We survive by fighting. It's what we know." Xyler's forearms moved in a complex gesture. "What are you saying, Captain?" "I'm saying our methods might shock you. We won't just try to stop this swarm. We'll destroy it." Several aliens backed away. One made a sound like water boiling. "You speak of extermination," Elder Silwasti asked, light pulsing rapidly through its crystal form. "I speak of survival," Wolf answered. "Yours and ours. Because if this swarm keeps growing, eventually it will find Earth too." The coalition representatives huddled together, speaking in voices too low for the translation matrix to catch. Finally, Xyler approached Wolf again. "We have no choice but to accept your offer, Captain. But please understand, violence is foreign to our nature. What you consider normal may be difficult for us to witness." Wolf nodded. "I'll need all the data you have on the swarm, biology, behavior patterns, weaknesses, everything." And then Xyler asked, "You call Earth?" Wolf smiled grimly. "We're going to need more ships." As the humans left to return to their vessel, Elder CRYST turned to Xyler. "Have we made a terrible mistake? These creatures seem as dangerous as the swarm itself." Xyler watched the humans depart, their heavy steps echoing down the corridor. "Perhaps, but the swarm gives us no choice. We must hope that these Deathworlders can save us, and that they will leave when their task is done." The laboratory aboard the Endeavor buzzed with activity. Dr. Rachel Morgan hunched over a microscope, studying samples of the void swarm provided by the Coalition. 3 days had passed since Captain Wolf sent his report to Earth, and the response had been swift. Earth was sending reinforcements, 5 more battleships, and a research vessel full of scientists specializing in biological weapons. Fascinating, Dr. Morgan muttered, adjusting the microscope. Their cellular structure is unlike anything I've seen before. Lieutenant David Park stood nearby, watching the scientists work. Can you find a weakness? Dr. Morgan looked up, her eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. Oh, yes. Everything has a weakness. These creatures are connected through a biological network, a hive mind of sorts. But their rapid growth has a cost. On the bridge, Captain Wolf met with Ambassador Zyler and Elder CRWT. The holographic display showed the swarms advance toward the Coalition core worlds. Your people need to evacuate these 3 systems immediately, Wolf said, pointing to planets in the swarm's path. Zyler's body trembled. That's 11 billion people. We don't have enough ships. Then we buy you time, Wolf replied. He touched the control, and the display changed to show a battle plan. We'll establish a defensive line here at the Cygnus Gap. It's a natural bottleneck. Elder CRYSD's crystalline form dimmed slightly. You intend to fight the swarm directly? Our weapons cannot harm them. Ours can, Wolf said simply. And Dr. Morgan believes she's found a biological weakness we can exploit. As if on cue, Dr. Morgan entered the bridge, carrying a small container. Captain, I developed a targeted pathogen. It attacks the swarm's unique biology while leaving other life forms untouched. She placed the container on the table. This is just a sample. We'll need to produce it in massive quantities. Ambassador Zyler backed away from the container. You created a disease deliberately? It's a biological weapon. Designed specifically to combat the swarm, Dr. Morgan explained. Elder CRYSD's voice took on a higher pitch. This is forbidden. Life should not be weaponized. Wolf's expression hardened. The swarm is killing your people by the billions. Would you rather maintain your moral stance or survive? A tense silence filled the bridge. Finally, Zyler spoke, voice barely above a whisper. How would this weapon be deployed? Dr. Morgan brought up a simulation on the display. We load it into missile warheads. On impact, the pathogen disperses in an aerosol cloud. It infects the swarm organisms, disrupting their cellular functions and preventing them from reproducing. The infected units will die within hours. She continued, more importantly, they'll spread the pathogen to others in the hive network. You're talking about killing trillions of living creatures, Elder CRYST said. Creatures that are eating your worlds, Lieutenant Shun countered. The discussion was interrupted by a communications officer. Captain, the Earth fleet has arrived. General Rodriguez requests to speak with you. Within hours, the human reinforcements had assembled at the Cygnus Gap. 6 battleships formed a defensive line while, behind them, the research vessel began mass-producing Dr. Morgan's pathogen. Coalition representatives watched in horror and fascination as humans prepared for war with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. Weapons were checked, fighter craft were fueled, and missiles were loaded with a biological agent. The first wave of the swarm will reach us in 12 hours, General Rodriguez announced during the final briefing. Our strategy is simple. Hold the line and deploy the pathogen. If Morgan's right, we'll see results within days. Ambassador Zyler addressed the human commanders with formal gravity. The Coalition has existed for 3,000 years without weapons of war. Today we witness methods that challenge our deepest beliefs. But we have no choice. We thank you for your assistance, though your ways frighten us. Wolf nodded respectfully. Sometimes survival requires doing a frightening thing, Ambassador. 3 days later, the first engagement with the swarm began. Human warships fired their missiles into the approaching biological cloud. The pathogen dispersed exactly as Dr. Morgan had predicted. For the first time in its existence, the void swarm retreated. The planet Helios spun slowly beneath a red sun. Once home to over 5 million Coalition citizens, it now served as the front line in humanity's war against the void swarm. Coalition ships filled the skies, ferrying civilians to safety while the human fleet established a defensive perimeter around the evacuation zones. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching the last transports load. His combat armor was scratched and dented from 3 weeks of fighting. Beside him, 50 human soldiers prepared their weapons and equipment. How many more to evacuate? Rivera asked the coalition coordinator, a tall insect-like being named Trill. 6,000, Trill replied, mandibles clicking nervously. But our sensors detect swarm activity approaching from the north. They have adapted to the pathogen faster than expected. Rivera nodded grimly. Dr. Morgan's biological weapon had worked brilliantly at first, but the swarm was evolving. Each new generation showed more resistance. We'll hold them off, Rivera said. Just get your people on those ships. Trill's compound eyes reflected the setting sun. You cannot stop them with so few soldiers. Rivera checked his rifle. We're not like you. We're used to fighting against bad odds. The radio crackled. Lieutenant, swarm unit spotted, 5 miles out and closing fast. Move into position. Rivera ordered his team. Remember, aim for the node clusters. They're still vulnerable there. The human soldiers spread out along the ridge line overlooking the evacuation site. The planet's harsh environment, then air, high gravity, and scorching heat, had already claimed 2 lives among Rivera's team, but the remaining soldiers adapted, using the tough conditions to their advantage. They're coming, called Sergeant Cooper from her observation post. Thousands of them. Rivera lifted his binoculars. The horizon darkened as the swarm approached, a writhing mass of chitinous bodies flowing like liquid across the rocky terrain. Hold until they reach the marked line, Rivera instructed. Then hit them with everything we've got. The first wave of the swarm crossed the invisible boundary. Rivera gave the signal, and the ridge erupted with weapons fire. Explosive rounds tore into the alien mass, each blast destroying dozens of creatures. But for every one that fell, 10 more emerged from behind. They're adapting to our attack pattern. Cooper shouted over the gunfire. Rivera watched as the swarm split into 3 groups, one continuing the frontal assault while 2 others moved to flank the human position. They've never done that before, he muttered. They're learning. What do we do, Lieutenant? A young soldier asked, fear evident in his voice. Rivera studied the terrain. The planet's harsh surface worked in their favor. A series of deep ravines cut through the landscape to their left and right. Cooper, take your team to the east ravine. Jackson, west ravine. Set explosive charges. We'll funnel them through the center. The soldiers moved quickly, using the planet's high gravity to slide down into the ravines. Rivera's remaining forces intensified their fire on the central group, drawing the swarm's attention. The plan worked. The swarm concentrated its advance through the center, avoiding the ravines. When the flanking groups were in position, Rivera gave the signal. Twin explosions rocked the battlefield as tons of rock crashed down, crushing hundreds of swarm units and blocking their advance through the ravines. The remaining forces focused all firepower on the central group. For 3 hours, they held the line as the evacuation ships filled and launched one by one. Rivera's forces took heavy casualties, 20 dead, 15 wounded. Last transport is away, Trill announced through the radio. All civilians evacuated. Rivera looked at his remaining forces, bloodied, exhausted, but still fighting. Fall back to extraction point. Mission accomplished. As the human dropships descended to collect the survivors, Rivera took one last look at the battlefield. The swarm had stopped advancing, gathering its forces for another approach. They're retreating, Cooper said in disbelief. Rivera shook his head. Not retreating. Adapting. Next time, they'll be stronger. ## Chapter 6, Evolving Threats. Aboard a coalition command ship, Ambassador Zyler watched the human soldier return. How many did you lose? He asked Rivera. 40% of my force, Rivera answered flatly. But we held the line. Zyler's 4 arms performed a gesture of profound respect. We have never seen such sacrifice. Your people fight in ways we cannot comprehend. Rivera removed his damaged helmet. That's why you called us, Ambassador. Because sometimes survival means doing the impossible. Dr. Morgan hadn't slept in 3 days. Her lab aboard the research vessel Pioneer had become her prison and salvation. Under the harsh lights, she studied the newest swarm samples, watching with growing concern as each test showed increased resistance to her original pathogen. "They're adapting faster than any organism I've ever seen," she explained to Captain Wolf during their emergency conference. "The original strain is now only 30% effective." Wolf's face showed the strain of weeks of constant battle. "We can't keep fighting a defensive war. Every retreat costs us coalition worlds." General Rodriguez nodded in agreement, his holographic image flickering slightly as it transmitted from his flagship. "Intelligence has located what appears to be the main swarm breeding ground, a planet they had completely overtaken in the Vega sector." Dr. Morgan looked up from her data. "If I could get fresh samples from the source, I might be able to develop a more effective weapon, something they haven't adapted to yet." Wolf studied the star map. "That's deep in swarm territory. We'd need a full battle group to reach it." "Then that's what we'll use," Rodriguez decided. "Captain Wolf, you'll lead the assault. The coalition will provide transportation and logistic support. Your mission is to get Dr. Morgan to the breeding world and back with her samples." Ambassador Zyler, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "My people will help, but we cannot fight. We have no warriors." "We're not asking you to fight," Wolf replied. "Just get us there. We'll handle the rest." Chapter 7, The Breeding World. 3 days later, the largest fleet ever assembled in Coalition history moved toward swarm territory. 6 human battleships formed the core, surrounded by hundreds of Coalition transport and support vessels. The plan was simple but dangerous. Punch through the swarm's outer defenses, reach the breeding world, and deploy Dr. Morgan's team to collect samples before withdrawing. Wolf stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, watching as the first swarm defenders appeared on sensors. "All ships, battle positions," he ordered. "Coalition vessels, fall back to safe distance. This is where we earn our keep." The human ships moved into formation, their weapon systems activating with practiced precision. The swarm responded by sending thousands of smaller units to surround the fleet. "They've never coordinated like this before," Lieutenant Chin observed. "They're evolving tactically." "Then so will we," Wolf responded. "Execute Pattern Delta. Target their largest concentrations." The human ships broke formation, each taking a different attack vector. Their weapons tore into the swarm, creating temporary gaps in the living wall of creatures. "Main cannon charged," the weapons officer reported. "Target their center mass and fire," Wolf ordered. The Endeavor shuddered as its primary weapon discharged, a brilliant beam of energy that cut through the swarm formation, vaporizing thousands of creatures instantly. The other human ships followed suit, their combined firepower carving a path forward. For 6 hours, the battle raged across space. 2 human ships were lost, their crews evacuating to Coalition vessels as the swarm overwhelmed their defenses. But the strategy worked. They had broken through to the breeding world. "We're in position," Wolf announced to Dr. Morgan's team. "You have 1 hour on the surface." The science vessel descended through the atmosphere, protected by fighter escorts. Below, the planet's surface writhed with swarm activity. What had once been mountains and oceans was now a single massive organism, the swarm's hive. Dr. Morgan worked quickly, collecting samples from different regions. "These are primary genesis nodes," she explained to her team. "The source of all swarm units. If we can target these specifically." Suddenly, the ground beneath them erupted. Swarm units unlike any they'd seen before, larger, more armored, emerged from the surface. "We've got company," shouted one of the security team. "New swarm type." "Get the samples to the ship," Morgan ordered as the guards formed a protective circle around her team. The retreat became chaotic. 2 scientists fell to the swarm despite the guards' best efforts. Morgan barely made it aboard with her precious samples as the creatures swarmed the landing zone. Back in orbit, Wolf made the most difficult decision of his career. Deploy the Nova bombs. Target the main hive structures. Nuclear devices fell toward the planet's surface, detonating in sequence across the main swarm concentrations. The explosions were visible from space, bright flashes that momentarily outshone the system sun. Did it work? Rodriguez asked over the comm. Wolf watched the sensor readings. We hurt them badly, but they're already regenerating. Dr. Morgan clutched her sample case. It's enough. I can work with this. As the fleet withdrew, Wolf looked back at the wounded planet. For the first time, humanity had struck a significant blow against the swarm, but the cost had been high. Hundreds of human lives and 2 irreplaceable ships. We won't get another chance like this, he told Rodriguez privately. Whatever Morgan develops has to work. We're running out of time and resources. The Situation Room aboard the Coalition flagship Silent Dawn had never been so crowded. Representatives from 17 species gathered around the central display, watching as the red mass representing the swarm pushed relentlessly toward their core worlds. Dr. Morgan's enhanced pathogen bought us 3 weeks, Captain Wolf explained, his voice hollow with exhaustion. But the swarm has adapted again. Their newest generation shows complete immunity. Ambassador Zyler's normally iridescent skin had dulled to a pale gray. Then we have lost. The Coalition has existed for 3,000 years, and now we face extinction. The room fell silent. 6 weeks of brutal fighting had cost humanity nearly a third of its deployed forces. The Coalition had lost 11 worlds to the swarm, with billions dead or displaced. Each victory had been temporary, each defeat permanent. Not yet, Dr. Morgan said, stepping forward. Her lab coat was stained and wrinkled from days without rest. I've been studying the swarm's energy patterns. They're drawn to thermal radiation. It's how they find habitable worlds to consume. Wolf looked up. We knew that already. Yes, but I've been thinking on a different scale. Morgan activated the display, showing a massive gas giant at the edge of Coalition space. This is Hyperion, a gas giant composed primarily of hydrogen and helium, the perfect fusion materials. Elder CRYSD's crystal form pulsed with confusion. What are you suggesting? Morgan took a deep breath. We convert Hyperion into a makeshift nova, a controlled fusion reaction that will release an enormous thermal pulse. The Coalition representatives murmured in shock. You want to destroy an entire planet? Zyler asked, voice trembling. Not destroy, Morgan corrected. Ignite. The thermal pulse would act as bait, drawing the entire swarm to Hyperion. When enough of them gather, we detonate the planetary core. Wolf finished, understanding dawning on his face. Creating a star-level event that would wipe them out. The energy release would be equivalent to a small supernova. Morgan confirmed. Nothing within half a light year would survive. The Coalition Council erupted in protest. Elder CRYSD's voice rose above the others. This is unthinkable. Hyperion's moons have research outposts. 3 nearby systems would be devastated by the radiation. We cannot commit such an act of destruction. Wolf stepped forward, his patience worn thin by weeks of battle. The swarm will reach your home worlds in 15 days. How many more billions will die while you cling to principles that the enemy doesn't share? General Rodriguez, joining via hologram, nodded in agreement. Every conventional option has failed. The swarm adapts to everything we throw at it. This may be our only chance to end this. Ambassador Zyler moved to the center of the room, silencing the arguments with a gesture. I have watched humans fight and die for people they never knew. Their methods disturb us, but their sacrifice is real. He turned to Elder CRYSD. We must consider Dr. Morgan's plan. For 6 hours, the debate raged. Coalition scientists analyzed Morgan's proposal, searching for alternatives. None were found. Dr. Morgan supervised from the endeavor, checking calculations that would determine whether their desperate gamble succeeded or failed. The hard part will be timing, she explained to Wolf. Someone needs to activate the catalyst manually after confirming the swarm is gathered. The radiation will make remote detonation impossible. Wolf studied the mission parameters. A suicide mission. Whoever triggered the catalyst would have minutes at most to escape the initial blast wave. I'll lead the trigger team, he said simply. Morgan looked up, startled. Captain, the chances of survival are irrelevant. Wolf finished. This is our one shot. I won't ask anyone else to do it. As preparations continued, the swarm seemed to sense the trap. Its advance toward Coalition homeworld slowed as units began moving toward Hyperion. "It's working," Morgan whispered, watching the sensor readings. "They're responding to the thermal bait." Wolf gathered his volunteer crew, 15 men and women who understood they might not return. As they boarded the small, fast ship that would take them to Hyperion, Ambassador Zyler approached. "Your willingness to sacrifice yourselves." The aliens struggled for words. "We have no concept for this in our language." Wolf smiled slightly. "We call it courage, Ambassador. It's what Deathworlders do." The small stealth vessel Firebreak approached Hyperion's swirling surface. Through the viewports, Captain Wolf and his 14 volunteers watched as a massive gas giant loomed before them. Its atmosphere churned with violent storms larger than Earth itself. But it wasn't the planet that held their attention. The space around Hyperion swarmed with the enemy. Billions of swarm units had gathered, drawn by the thermal bait Dr. Morgan had designed. The plan was working perfectly. "Final approach," Lieutenant Chun announced from the pilot seat. Her hands moved steadily across the controls despite the knowledge that this might be her last mission. "We'll reach insertion point in 5 minutes. Wolf addressed his team. "Once we're in position, we'll have 30 minutes to plan the catalyst devices and retreat to safe distance." He paused, meeting each person's eyes. "If we're successful, the galaxy lives. If we fail, the swarm continues until nothing remains." No one needed to mention the slim chances of their own survival. They had all volunteered knowing the risks. The Firebreak dove into Hyperion's upper atmosphere, using the planet storms as cover. Swarm units passed nearby, unaware of the tiny human ship in their midst. At precisely the calculated depth, the team deployed the primary catalyst, a device that would trigger a chain reaction in the planet's hydrogen core. "Primary catalyst deployed," the engineer reported, initializing warm-up sequence. Wolf checked the timer. 25 minutes to get clear. "Let's move." As they turned to leave, disaster struck. A rogue storm front slammed into the Firebreak, damaging the main engine. The ship lurched sideways, alarms blaring throughout the cabin. "Engine 2 is down." Chin called out, "We're losing altitude." Wolf moved to the engineering station. "Can we reach escape velocity on the remaining engine?" The engineer's face told him everything. "Not with all of us aboard, sir." Silence fell over the bridge. The mission parameters had just changed from dangerous to lethal. Wolf made his decision instantly. Reduce crew to minimum. 5 stay. The rest, evacuating the emergency pods. Before anyone could protest, he continued, "That's an order. The pods have enough thrust to reach safe distance." After a brief, heated argument, 9 crew members entered the escape pods. Wolf remained with Chown, the engineer, and 2 others. Their task was now simple. Keep the ship functional long enough to ensure the catalyst activated properly. 10 minutes to ignition, the engineer reported as the last escape pod launched. Above them, the swarm noticed a small craft leaving Hyperion's atmosphere. Thousands of units broke off to investigate. "They're following the pods," Chin said, watching the sensor display. Wolf opened the communication channel. "Coalition Command, this is Wolf. Our position is compromised. Begin Operation Sunforge immediately." From safe distance, the Coalition and human fleets watched as swarm units swarmed around Hyperion, drawn by the increasing heat signature from the catalyst. 5 minutes to ignition, Dr. Morgan announced, her eyes fixed on the data stream from Wolf's ship. "The catalyst is stable." Ambassador Zyler and Elder C.R. Weisty stood silently nearby, watching as humans prepared to sacrifice themselves for a galaxy not their own. On the Firebreak, Wolf and his skeleton crew worked feverishly to keep the damaged ship airborne. 2 minutes, the engineer called. Wolf opened the final communication channel. "This is Captain Jason Wolf to all ships. The catalyst is active and stable. Prepare for detonation." He paused, then added, "It has been my honor to serve with all of you, human and coalition alike. Whatever happens next, remember that we stood together against extinction and won." 1 minute before detonation, the impossible happened. The firebreak's emergency systems routed enough power to the damaged engine for one final burst. "We have thrust," Chen shouted, attempting emergency ascent. The small ship rocketed upward, fighting Hyperion's gravity with everything it had left. Behind them, the catalyst reached critical temperature. The gas giant's hydrogen core ignited. For an instant, a second sun blazed in the Coalition sky. The energy wave expanded outward at nearly the speed of light, vaporizing everything in its path. 90% of the swarm died in that single moment. 3 days later, against all odds, a heavily damaged escape pod was recovered by a Coalition patrol ship. Inside, barely alive, were Captain Wolf and Lieutenant Chun, the only survivors of the Firebreak's crew. A month later, in the Grand Chamber of the Coalition Council, humans stood as honored guests. Ambassador Xyler addressed the assembled representatives. "For 3,000 years, we believed violence had no place in civilized society. The swarm taught us that survival sometimes requires strength we did not possess." He turned to Captain Wolf, now recovered from his injuries. "The humans showed us that courage means facing death, not just for oneself, but for others, even those different from you." Elder CRYST stepped forward, crystal form blazing with light. "Today we formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Coalition, not as members, but as protectors, a role unique to your species." Wolf, standing with Dr. Morgan and the other human representatives, bowed slightly. "Earth accepts this honor. We hope to learn from your wisdom as you have learned from our strength." Across Coalition space, memorials were built to honor thousands of humans who had died fighting the swarm. On Earth, the news that humans were no longer alone in the universe and had already saved the universe from destruction changed society forever. The remaining swarm units were hunted down over the following years. Coalition world began establishing their own defense forces, guided by human advisors. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, Coalition scientists placed a special beacon, warning any who might listen about the deadly swarm and the even deadlier humans who had stopped it. As Wolf often said in the years that followed, the universe called us monsters and feared our world. Then it needed monsters to fight for it, and found friends instead. 5 years after the Battle of Hyperion, humanity had found its place in the galactic community. Earth had joined the Coalition as its first designated protector species, a role that came with both honor and responsibility. Captain Jason Wolf, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the bridge of the new flagship Endeavour II. Beside him stood Ambassador Xyler, who had requested to accompany humanity on its first official diplomatic mission to the Coalition core worlds. "The Council is eager to meet you," Xyler said, adjusting the environmental translator around his neck. "Many still fear what you represent, but most now understand that your strength saved us all." Wolf nodded, watching the starfield stretch before them. "And we're eager to show them that humans are more than just warriors." Dr. Rachel Morgan, now head of the new Xenobiological Research Institute on Earth, had joined them for this historic journey. "The scientific knowledge we'll gain from this partnership could revolutionize our understanding of life itself," she said, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Lieutenant Amanda Chown, now captain of her own vessel, the Courageous, flew alongside them as part of the escort fleet. "It's strange," she mused over the comm, "to think that 5 years ago we were preparing for war. Now we're preparing for peace." The Endeavour II dropped out of FTL near the Coalition's capital world, a planet called Unity that orbited a stable trinary star system. The sight took their breath away. 3 suns of different colors bathed the planet in perpetual twilight, creating an atmosphere of ethereal beauty. The orbital station above Unity made even Harmony Station look modest. Hundreds of alien vessels of every shape and size moved in carefully choreographed patterns around the structure. "Welcome to the heart of the Coalition," Xyler announced, pride evident in his voice. "For 3 millennia, this has been the center of our civilization." As they approached the station, Wolf couldn't help but notice the defensive emplacements now installed throughout the system, a direct result of humanity's influence. The Coalition had learned that peace required strength to protect it. Their arrival was met with mixed reactions. Some species greeted them with open curiosity, while others kept their distance, clearly still uncomfortable with humanity's reputation as Deathworlders. Elder CRYST now president of the Coalition Council, met them at the docking bay. Captain Wolf, the crystalline being, said, light pulsing through its form, "It is an honor to welcome you to Unity. Your sacrifice at Hyperion has not been forgotten." "The honor is ours," Wolf replied. "Humanity is eager to contribute to the Coalition's prosperity." As they moved through the station, Wolf noticed something that hadn't been apparent during their first visit: the subtle signs of a civilization adapting to a new reality. Young aliens from various species now participated in combat training programs developed by human instructors. Research facilities studied human military history and tactics. The Coalition was changing, evolving in response to the harsh lessons of the Swarm. "The younger generation see you differently," Zyler explained, noticing Wolf's observations. "They don't remember the time before the Swarm. To them, your strength isn't frightening, it's reassuring." In the council chambers, representatives from across the Coalition gathered to formally welcome humanity. The proceedings were interrupted by an emergency transmission from the outer colonies. "President CRWST," a panicked voice announced over the speakers, "we're detecting an unidentified fleet approaching the Vela system. They're not responding to hails, and their energy signature matches nothing in our database." Wolf exchanged glances with his officers. Could it be another swarm? Or something new? "Admiral Wolf," President CRWST said, turning to him, "your expertise in such matters would be invaluable. Would you be willing to investigate?" Wolf nodded. "Of course. The Endeavor 2 can depart immediately." As they rushed back to their ship, Dr. Morgan spoke quietly to Wolf. "Do you think it's another swarm?" "I hope not," Wolf replied. "But if it is, we're better prepared now. And this time, we won't be facing it alone." The Endeavor 2 and its escort fleet jumped to the Vela system, finding chaos upon arrival. 3 Coalition colonies were under attack by ships of unknown design, angular, black vessels that move with unnatural precision. "They're not swarm," Jim reported from the Courageous, "but they're just as destructive." "Open a channel," Wolf ordered. "All frequencies. Let's see if they'll talk to us." After a moment of static, a voice came through, cold, mechanical, and utterly alien. "Identify yourselves, Deathworlders. Your presence here violates a quarantine zone established by the Silicate Collective." Wolf frowned. "Quarantine zone? We had colonies in the system for 200 years. Your presence is no longer authorized," the voice continued. "All organic life in this sector will be purged to prevent contamination." As the black ships opened fire, Wolf realized with dawning horror that defeating the swarm had only been the beginning. Humanity had found its place among the stars, but the galaxy was far larger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. "Battle stations," Wolf ordered calmly. "It seems our work as protectors has just begun." The black ships moved with terrifying efficiency, their weapons cutting through Coalition defenses with ease. Unlike the swarm's biological nature, these vessels appeared to be mechanical, or perhaps something between machine and life. Analysis of their weapons, Dr. Morgan requested from the science station. "I need to understand what we're facing." "Energy signatures indicate plasma-based weaponry," Jim reported, "but their hull composition is unlike anything I've seen. It appears to absorb most of our weapon impacts." The Endeavor 2 shuddered as it took a direct hit. "Shields at 80%, the tactical officer announced. "Evasive maneuvers," Wolf ordered. "Coordinate with the Courageous. Pattern Omega." The human ships moved in perfect synchronization, executing a battle sequence developed during Earth's internal conflicts. The alien vessels, clearly not expecting such tactical coordination, hesitated for a crucial moment. "That gave us an opening," Jin noted. "They seem to rely on technological superiority rather than tactical prowess." They've never faced true resistance before, Wolf realized. The Coalition's pacifist nature left them unprepared for any aggressors. As the battle continued, Dr. Morgan made a discovery. Their ships are partially organic. The hulls regenerate, but slowly, and there's a pattern to their weapon discharge. They need to recharge after each major volley. "That's their weakness," Wolf said. "Chun, can you get us close enough to target their power systems?" With your permission, I have a better idea, Chen responded. The courageous is smaller and more maneuverable. I can lead a strike team to board one of their vessels. The risk was enormous, but time was running out. The coalition colonies were suffering heavy casualties, and their defenses wouldn't hold much longer. Approved, Wolf said. Take whoever you need. We'll provide cover. As Chun prepared her boarding party, Xyler approached Wolf on the bridge. This is what you warned us about, isn't it? The universe is not as peaceful as we believed. Wolf nodded grimly. The swarm was just the beginning. There are other threats out there, species that view the coalition's pacifism not as enlightenment but as weakness. Then humanity's role as protectors is more vital than ever, Xyler said. We have much to learn from you. Chen's team successfully boarded the alien vessel, finding a nightmarish interior of shifting corridors and crystalline structures. The beings inside were humanoid but made of what appeared to be living silicon, the silicate collective the voice had mentioned. They communicate through vibrations in their crystalline structure, Chen reported over the comm, no verbal language as we understand it. After a fierce battle that cost 3 human lives, Chen's team reached what appeared to be the ship's command center. There they discovered something that changed everything. Maps showing coalition space marked as fertile ground for harvesting and Earth labeled as highly dangerous, avoid at all costs. They're not just attacking randomly, Chen realized. They're harvesting organic life for some purpose, and they're specifically avoiding Earth because they fear what humans might do to them. Back on the Endeavor 2, Wolf processed this information. If they fear us, we can use that. Transmit a message on all frequencies. Show them footage from the Battle of Hyperion. The gamble worked. Upon seeing the destruction of the swarm and the willingness of humans to sacrifice themselves, the silicate ships broke off their attack. Your species is aberrant, the cold voice transmitted. Biological life should not possess such destructive capabilities. We will reconsider our approach to this sector. With that, the black ships vanished into FTL, leaving behind damaged colonies and many questions. They'll be back, Wolf predicted. But now we know what we're facing. The attack by the Silicate Collective sent shockwaves through the coalition. For the first time in 3 millennia, they face an enemy that wasn't a mindless biological threat, but a technologically advanced species with hostile intentions. President CRYSD called an emergency session of the Council, with Admiral Wolf and Dr. Morgan as special advisors. The Silicate Collective has been harvesting organic worlds for centuries, CRYST explained, showing intelligence gathered by human forces. They view carbon-based life as nothing more than a resource to be consumed. We've been living in a bubble, Xyler said sadly. Our commitment to nonviolence left us blind to the dangers beyond our borders. Wolf stepped forward. With respect, President CRYST, your principles are admirable but unsustainable in a galaxy that contains threats like the Swarm and the Silicates. The Coalition needs to evolve, to develop the strength to protect itself while maintaining the values that make it worth protecting. Dr. Morgan added, our analysis shows that the Silicates specifically avoid Earth because they fear humanity's aggressive nature. They see us as aberrations, dangerous and unpredictable. Then perhaps humanity's role as protectors is more vital than we realized, CRYST said. I propose the formation of a Coalition Defense Council, with Admiral Wolf as its head. Human officers would train and lead Coalition forces, while respecting the values of all member species. The proposal was controversial, but ultimately passed. Humanity had been given a position of authority in the Coalition, an unprecedented development that would reshape galactic politics. As Wolf worked to establish the new Defense Council, he noticed something troubling. Some Coalition species resented human influence, while others seemed almost eager to embrace militaristic solutions. We need to be careful, he told Dr. Morgan one evening as they reviewed the new defense structure. We can't let the Coalition become a mirror of Earth's violent past. Humanity has changed too, Morgan pointed out. We've learned that there's a time for war and a time for peace. The challenge is finding the balance. Their first major test came when a Coalition colony in the Orion sector requested assistance dealing with what they described as aggressive indigenous life forms. When human forces arrived, They discovered that the aggressive life forms were actually primitive sentient beings fighting to protect their ancestral lands from coalition expansion. This is exactly what I was worried about, Wolf told his officers. We're not here to be conquerors. We're here to protect. The incident led to the establishment of the prime directive of the new Defense Council. All coalition military actions would be evaluated not just for tactical necessity, but for ethical considerations as well. The humans have taught us that strength without wisdom is just another form of weakness, President CRYST observed during the ceremony establishing the new policy. Today, we commit ourselves to both. Hashtag Chapter 14 echoes a home. 5 years after joining the coalition, humanity had established itself as a vital member of the galactic community. Earth had become the headquarters of the Defense Council, with training facilities and research centers spread across the solar system. Admiral Wolf now split his time between Earth and Unity, while Captain Chin commanded the rapidly growing Coalition Defense Fleet. Dr. Morgan had established a Xenobiological Research Institute on Mars, where scientists from across the Coalition studied life in all its forms. One afternoon, Wolf received an unexpected transmission from General Rodriguez, who had remained in command of Earth's independent forces. Jason, we detected something unusual in the Orc cloud, Rodriguez said, his expression grave. An automated probe of unknown origin. It's been broadcasting what appears to be a distress signal for several months, but our systems only recently picked it up. Wolf frowned. Another alien contact? After everything we've seen, I'm not sure Earth is ready for more surprises. That's not all, Rodriguez continued. The signal contains references to Earth, specific coordinates, historical events that only someone with deep knowledge of human history would know. And it's broadcasting in a dialect of Mandarin that hasn't been commonly used for 300 years. Wolf felt a chill run down his spine. Could it be? A lost colony? Rodriguez finished. Or perhaps something else entirely. I thought you should know before we make any official contact. The discovery raised profound questions. Had humans ventured into deep space before the official FTL program began? If so, why had they never returned? And what had they encountered that made them send this cryptic message centuries later? Wolf requested permission from the Coalition Council to investigate personally. With Chun in command of the fleet and Morgan leading the scientific team, he traveled to the Orc cloud aboard the Endeavour II. What they found there changed everything. The probe was of human design, but technology unlike anything currently used on Earth. It contained logs from a colony ship that had left Earth nearly 400 years earlier, during a period of political upheaval that had apparently erased records of their departure. The colony, which called itself New Beginnings, had established itself on a planet 20 light-years from Earth. For 3 centuries, they had thrived in isolation, developing their own culture and technology. The distress signal told a different story. Approximately 50 years ago, New Beginnings had encountered an alien species they called the Visitors. At first, relations had been peaceful, but had deteriorated when the Visitors discovered that humans possess a potential for rapid technological advancement. The Visitors see humanity as a threat to their dominance in this region of space, Dr. Morgan explained, translating the final logs. They've been systematically isolating New Beginnings, preventing them from developing FTL travel or communicating with other human settlements. The most shocking revelation came in the final entries. The Visitors weren't just aliens. They were descendants of another human colony that had left Earth even earlier during the first wave of interstellar exploration. They had evolved differently, developing a society based on strict control of technological advancement. We're not alone in the universe, Wolf said quietly, and we're not even alone as humans. We've been scattered across the stars, evolving in different directions. The discovery had profound implications for Earth's place in the galaxy. If other human descendants existed, some potentially hostile, then humanity's role as coalition protectors became even more complicated. We need to establish contact with New Beginnings, Wolf decided, and we need to understand what these Visitors are truly after. As the Endeavour II set course for the lost colony, Wolf couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun. The questions that had driven them to answer the original distress call had been answered, but new, more complex questions had taken their place. Hashtag Chapter 15, the human diaspora, The journey to New Beginnings took 3 weeks, giving the crew time to prepare for what they might find. Would these lost humans welcome them as long-lost cousins, or would they view Earth's representatives with suspicion? Dr. Morgan worked tirelessly to understand the visitors' technology and motivations. Their approach to controlling technological advancement is fascinating, she explained during a briefing. They've established a kind of galactic status quo, preventing any species from becoming too powerful. It's a form of stability through control. But at what cost? Chen asked. If they're suppressing humanity's potential, perhaps they believe it's necessary, Morgan countered. We don't know their history, what threats they might have faced that led them to this philosophy. When they arrived at the New Beginning system, they found 2 planets inhabited by humans, one clearly the original colony, the other more recently established. Both showed signs of advanced technology, but nothing approaching FTL capability. We're being hailed, the communications officer announced, from the original colony. The face that appeared on the view screen was weathered but familiar, undeniably human, yet somehow different. I am Governor Alara Mercer of New Beginnings, the woman said. We've been waiting for you. Our probe reached you, then. I'm Admiral Jason Wolf of Earth, Wolf replied. We came as soon as we understood your message. Earth, Mercer breathed. We maintained records, but after so many centuries, we began to wonder if you still existed. As diplomatic relations were established, the complex truth emerged. The visitors, who called themselves the Preservers, were indeed descendant of another human colony, one that had encountered a powerful alien civilization that had been destroyed by its own technological hubris. The Preservers believed that unrestricted technological advancement leads inevitably to self-destruction, explained Kale, the Preserver representative who eventually agreed to meet with Wolf's team. We've seen it happen across the sector of space. Species develop powerful weapons. They turn those weapons on each other, and they vanish. So you appointed yourselves the galaxy's technology police? Chen asked, unable to keep skepticism from her voice. We preserve life by preventing extinction, Kale replied calmly. Your emergence, Earth's rapid advancement and your alliance with the Coalition threatens the stability we maintained for centuries. The revelation created a crisis within the Defense Council. Some argued that the Preservers' approach, while paternalistic, might have merit. Others insisted that technological suppression was a violation of fundamental rights. We've faced this question before, Wolf told the Council. On Earth, during our early atomic age, some argued that nuclear technology should be banned globally. Others insisted that knowledge could not be suppressed, only managed. The debate led to the establishment of the Concordance on Technological Development, a set of principles agreed upon by Earth, the Coalition, the Preservers, and New Beginnings. It established guidelines for responsible technological advancement while recognizing the right of all species to develop at their own pace. The universe is more complex than we ever imagined, President CRYST observed when the Concordance was signed. Humanity, in all its forms, must now find its place not as conquerors or protectors, but as partners in galactic community. ## Chapter 16, New Horizons. 10 years after answering the original distress call, humanity had become an integral part of galactic society. The Defense Council had grown to include representatives from multiple species, with human officers serving alongside Coalition, Preserver, and New Beginnings personnel. Admiral Wolf now commanded the Concordance Fleet, a joint force dedicated to protecting the principles established in the Technological Concordance. Captain Chun had become head of the Advanced Tactical Training Academy on Earth, where officers from across the galaxy learned to work together. Dr. Morgan had established the Center for Xenobiological Harmony on Unity, where scientists from dozens of species collaborated on understanding life in all its forms. Her research had led to breakthroughs in medicine, communication, and conflict resolution. Perhaps most importantly, humanity had begun to heal its own divisions. Earth, the Preservers, and New Beginnings established the Human Diaspora Council to coordinate their activities and preserve their shared heritage while celebrating their differences. We scattered across the stars and evolved in isolation, President CRYST observed during a ceremony marking the 10th anniversary of the Concordance. but we've come together again, stronger and wiser for our separation. The challenges remained. New species continued to be discovered, some peaceful, others hostile. The Silicate Collective still posed a threat, though they had maintained a tense distance since their first encounter with humanity. But the galaxy had changed. The Coalition had learned that peace required strength to protect it. The Preservers had learned that technological development could be guided rather than suppressed. And humanity had learned that its warrior nature, tempered by wisdom, could be a force for good rather than destruction. On the bridge of the Endeavor 3, Admiral Wolf watched as a new class of ship prepared for its maiden voyage. The Unity was the first vessel designed and built through combined effort of Earth, the Coalition, the Preservers, and New Beginnings, a symbol of their new partnership. Ready for departure, Admiral, Captain Chin reported from the command chair. She had been given the honor of commanding the Unity on its first mission. Wolf smiled. The universe is waiting. Captain, show them what we've become. As the Unity slipped into FTL, Wolf reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A desperate signal from across the stars had led humanity not to war or conquest, but a partnership with the diverse life forms that shared their galaxy. The message that had changed everything, help us please. They are coming. We cannot stop them, had been answered not just with weapons, but with understanding. Not just with strength, but with wisdom. Not just with humanity's warrior nature, but with a capacity for growth and change. As the stars stretched before them, Wolf knew that humanity's true adventure had only just begun. They had answered the call and found their place among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as partners in the great cosmic dance of life. The distress call had been answered, but the conversation with the universe had only just started.